like to pay a couple respects to the people that made me what I am today.
Hey, welcome to the Soul Patch Podcast, the podcast where three expats discuss education, culture, and life on the Korean Peninsula. I'm your host, Jack McBain, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Ryan Anderly and Kevin Mitchell. Guys, how you doing this evening?
Fantastic night.
Doing
Weather's
nice.
great outside.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. Spring weather actually feels more like summer. I'll tell you what, I was on Facebook swimming in that cesspool this evening, and I came across a meme, and I don't know, is a meme, does a meme have to have a picture, or can a meme be just words? Is it just like...
That's an interesting question. I think
I don't know,
that
I think
internet
it's an
memes
idea.
like kind of involve pictures, but
That's what
I don't see why
I thought
it
a
wouldn't.
meme has to be like it's usually like a comment with some kind of picture, but in this
That's how it
case, it was...
started.
Maybe, I don't know, I guess this would be like a joke then or something, but it was taking a little shot at Minnesotans. I'm from Minnesota, and it says the CDC just announced that you don't have to say "oh" every time you almost bump into someone. So do you guys do that? Like, if you're this resonated with me, because every time I go on the subway, I'm like, oh, almost bumping into somebody, and I didn't realize that was a Midwestern, Minnesota thing. Yeah.
It's coming down from Canada. You got to say like A or something, but you got the O, I guess. No, I'm Arizona. We don't do oaks.
The reason I brought this up was actually because I was kind of curious. This is for Ryan first. You don't sound like you don't have like a Wisconsin accent, but I'm from Minnesota, and our accents are very similar. Did you work on like getting rid of it?
Nah, it wasn't active. Like, and your accent too is pretty thin, I think, compared to like, yeah, I've got family in Minneapolis. No, it's interesting. I don't know exactly how my voice changed, because it did. It definitely changed. I have three sisters, and of course my mom and my dad. And one of my sisters and my parents both are like really thick, northeastern Wisconsin, straight up.
Family. Yeah.
Yeah, not my whole family. I got two sisters and myself. Somehow we just evolved away. And so I wonder sometimes, like, myself and one of my sisters, we went to the West Coast for university. We were like 18, so we were quite young. Well, she went later, I guess. I went for university. She moved after university. But at any rate, we've spent half of our adult lives in the Pacific Northwest. So maybe that's a difference. But my other sister, who also does not have a Wisconsin accent, she went to school in Milwaukee and lives in Milwaukee.
I
have no idea.
That is, it's so weird. I think some people are kind of immune to it. You strike me as someone who probably didn't have a very strong accent. And I think it's like, for me, I had a super thick Minnesota accent. And it was when I moved to the West Coast that I got made fun of. It was like I had a speech impediment or something. And I felt so self-conscious about it. I taught myself a generic American accent. I like got rid of it. And over time, this is my normal accent now. So I do hit certain words. It comes back. But I really made a concerted effort. And so I was wondering if you were, vain like me and just got, worked to get rid of it, or if it just kind of naturally, was never there or faded away.
No, like most of my friends after I was 20 years old were from California, Oregon, and Washington, and DC. And sometimes people would comment on the way I'd say things, but
yeah.
I never was a big thing, and I don't feel like
I think it's kind of charming now. Like I'm not so, I'm not so insecure. Right? I'm 44 years old. I
feel bad because I just have the normal like Arizona, like West Coast accent. I've never had
what is the Arizona accent? That was my second question, was like, it's not, you're in the South, right? But you
Yeah,
don't,
Arizona
I've
is
never
like-
met someone from Arizona who's like, how y'all doing? You know, it's not, I've never heard that before.
No, that's more like Texas, I think. Arizona is just California minus 10 years. So anything that was popular in California becomes popular in Arizona like 5 to 10 years later. We're just
Right,
behind
right.
on the slang.
Well, we're
Right.
probably about 30 years behind in Minnesota then, you know.
In
Just,
in university, we used to say Arizona belongs to the Bermuda Triangle. It's like Colorado, Arizona, and like California. Like you got the bra culture.
oh, right. That
I
makes
think
sense.
Flagstaff's too much of a hippie town to have the bra part, but I can see
yeah,
that.
Bermuda.
It's not
I mean,
part of
Arizona, we do have
bra.
ASU, and that's like that's bra central, like famous. So
Famous party grounds.
number one every year.
Central. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that was I was curious about that because yeah, I guess all three of us have different you know, kind of different stories of our accents, but I think as time goes by and you know my brain starts to melt away, the Minnesota accent is probably under there somewhere in the foundation, so it'll just come back. And
I want it back, man. I want it back.
oh geez,
want
oh
it
you
back.
know, oh yeah, you know, oh yeah,
Yeah.
Minnesota, yeah. So anyway, the theme of today's podcast is not accents. The theme of today's podcast is origin stories, right? And I think our listeners out
How we
there would
became
be interested.
superheroes.
Yeah, like how did we you know, end up you know, kind of living, working in a foreign country, and I think all of us are over 10 years, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
close to 20, but I start actually I hit 20. I started in 2001. That was my first teaching gig, but you guys are definitely well over 10 years now.
For
So,
sure. I'm at I'll be 14 this September. Will be my career anniversary when I arrive.
nice. Yeah. That's
Mm.
you've earned your badge at 14.
Yeah, my kimchi
Yeah.
badge.
Since 2001.
Not in Korea, in Asia.
Okay, where'd you start?
So well, I could start with we could flip it, and I can go first here, and then we can go to Kevin next. In 2001, I was in living in Los Angeles. That was where my friend told me, you don't know how to say the word bag. I say bag instead of bag. You know, that was and so I realized at that point I had a problem. And but I was you know, living and working in LA, and I was working for a TV show. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the TV show Change of Heart. It was a dating game show from like 20 years ago. It was like a couple goes on a date with other people, and then they come back and they all talk about it. It was a kind of early dating, you know, one of those reality TV shows.
Nice.
And anyway, the show was about to move to New York from Los Angeles, so I was about to be out of a job, and my brother had just come back from visiting Thailand, so I was like, okay, I got online and I'd heard somewhere that if you have a degree, you could teach English in Asia, and so I just found this school and I sent them an email, and they were like, yeah, sure. Come to Thailand on this date, you've got a job. And so I quit my job, and I sold my car, my truck and everything, and I shipped a bunch of boxes back to Minnesota, and I got on a plane, and I arrived at the Don Muang Airport in Bangkok, and nobody was there.
Weren't there supposed to be someone there?
I was
to be
there.
fair?
I didn't really even have like a number. I had no phone at this time. Like this is just, you know, this is 2001. So this is way back in the pre 9/11, but not too pre, you know, just a few months. And the lady that was supposed to pick me up at the airport got the times wrong. It was 11 a.m. and she thought it was 11 p.m.
Huh.
And so I just had to wait at the airport for like 12 hours. And
Classic.
I thought it was a practical joke that someone had pulled. Like, I bet we can get this guy to fly halfway around the world and just as a practical joke, and there's nothing here for him.
How,
And yeah.
Jack, how did you decide when you arrived that you weren't gonna like try and figure out where your work was? Why did you say like, I'm just gonna
Oh,
sit here for 12 hours?
well, no. What I did was, I think, I think I gave her like a 4 hour window. I was like,
Oh,
I'll wait. I'll give it a good wait.
sure.
She's
She could just
probably
be
just
late.
running late. It's
Hi,
probably
time.
like, it's a foreign country. Maybe they don't have, clocks
Clocks.
or whatever. I don't know. And eventually I think I did have like a printout of an email with a phone number. And this is like a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember, but I was in the airport and I went up to the help desk and they let me use their phone, and I finally got a
Nice.
hold of her, and then they came and got me. But I did wait like a substantially long amount of time there. And but yeah, eventually they picked me up, and I did have a job. It wasn't a practical joke, and I was teaching at this bilingual school in. Again, this is where the details matter. It was in Bangkok, but it was a place called Bangbon or Bangbon. I can't even pronounce it anymore. But they said it's 15 minutes from downtown Bangkok by Apache helicopter, not
For real?
not by taxi. So it's technically Bangkok, but if we ever wanted to come into like the Sukhumvit or Siloam area, it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours,
Oh, Lord.
with traffic. So we were way out in the boondocks at this time. But I'd never taught English before. I don't know if how you guys felt the first time, when you first started that very first job, but I felt really, I wasn't prepared. I just felt like I'm gonna get fired immediately. There's no way,
Were there other foreigners there at the place where you were at?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
there ended up being like probably 20, 25 of us there. It was
That's
a
big.
we all had our own apartments, and we lived, it was like a giant compound almost. There's like
Sure.
a multiple buildings and stuff like that, and so we were all kind of we all became pretty good friends and everything, but
How long
it
did you
was
stick it out
camping.
there?
What's that?
How long did you stay there?
I was there for a year and 2 months. So 2001 until 2002.
So that's
And
pretty quick. You kind of went from there, and did you go from there like straight to Korea? Was that like
I
just
did. So after teaching
oh,
there for a year, the money obviously in Thailand is not that good. I mean, you
Right.
live well when you're there, but I had student loans and stuff like that. So got
Yeah.
online. My buddy and I we decided, okay, we're gonna go to Korea
it was
and actually
economic
make some money.
decision. It was economics. It was like Thailand, I'm making this, and if I go here, I can like 2x my pay.
Exactly. I mean, that was the calculus for us. It was like we're in, when you're in Thailand, it's probably like it's a more fun, place to be. You know what I mean? You can go to the beach. You can, it's a very touristy place,
Mm.
and
Especially back
there's lots of
in 2001.
restaurants. What's that?
Especially back in 2001.
Yeah,
Right.
right. Back in 2000, yeah, like even at that time, I had missed like if you watch the movie The Beach or whatever, that
Mm.
whole scene was already gone by the time I showed up there. It had moved on to another cooler place somewhere
Right. Right.
else.
So when you wanted to get a job in Korea, like you said, when you were leaving America going to Thailand, it was uh pretty straightforward. You had found something online, it was a listing, you signed up, they just slapped you with a job, and you were like, airplane, go, job. So when you
Exactly.
went to Korea, what was your entrance like? Like what was the process?
Yeah, okay. So the process is a little bit stricter when you're doing when you're going from going to Korea, where we had, even at that time though, in 2001, you just had to have like a bachelor's degree, and and some transcripts, and I happened to have brought that with me. And I think at that time the transcripts didn't even have to be sealed. I think, this is how, like, so long ago that you could just have like I think I just sent like I think we did have to send the original transcripts though, like I had to mail my actual diploma.
Did you need
Which-
the FBI check?
No, this is all before that stuff. There was no this all the FBI stuff all happened kind of in the wake of a big scandal that might have happened before you guys came here. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it must have, because when I came to Seoul, it was my first FBI check, and
Mhm.
maybe it was the beginning of this. It was just after Obama was elected. I remember that, at least time frame wise. So I guess that's 2008. And I remember that the FBI check, I didn't know what that was.
Right.
So I applied for it.
Right.
And the institutions that had asked me for it, they gave me some contact information. I made some phone calls. I had to call Langley. I mean, it was the
Oh,
FBI.
yeah.
And yeah, and,
That's
and
hilarious.
They wanted to know like who I was. Like,
Right.
why are you doing this? I said, well, I just got employment. My situation was a little backwards. I didn't really apply to my job. It was kind of the other way around. And so I'm like, yeah, they're telling me I need this. They're like, but who are you? I said, well, my name is
Some
Ryan.
dude
I'm
in
from
Korea.
Wisconsin. Like, yeah, I'm cool. What's up?
Wisconsin. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, this is a federal check. You can just do a state check. It's fine. States have reciprocity. It's fine. So I did the Wisconsin check, and I gave that to the people that are asking for it, and they came out like, no, we want the federal check. We want you to go through Langley. Like, it's got to be the real deal. So I went back to the FBI and I said, hey, they're telling me I gotta do that. They're busting my balls. I need this check. And they're like, yeah, you're not the president. Like, what are you doing here? Like, you know.
Right.
They thought it was really impressive that my point is they thought it was impressive that I was asking for this check. It was somewhat
Nobody has ever done that in the history of the yeah.
that was my impression. Maybe now it's standard. I'm sure it is.
Right.
But yeah, it was this odd back and forth because I didn't realize two people asking me and telling me what to do. It didn't make any sense.
You came here at a really weird time. I think actually, if you're talking about that 2008 time, a lot of teachers were there was a lot of grumbling like, well, what, do I get the state one or do I get the federal one? And some immigration offices, they were accepting state, and other ones were saying, no, I need the federal. And there was a lot of, I think there was a lot of confusion at that time, if I'm not mistaken. I think
There's always confusion at the immigration office.
Yeah, right. I mean, the thing is, I think I've been married so long that I haven't had to deal with it for such a long time. I forgot, what the ropes you have to jump through. Or
So
hoops you have to jump through.
When you came to Korea, what was your what was the job? What'd you end up doing?
So I came for like a just run of the mill, standard Hagwon job. It was like when I look back on it, it could have been way worse, right? Like I complained about it all the time, and because the hours are it's pretty intensive, right? They try to get as many classes out of you per day as they can
What was
because.
your schedule?
Well, I think my schedule wasn't that bad. It was probably like I think I did kindergarten from like maybe 9:30 until 12, and I probably had a 1 hour lunch break, and then 1 o'clock until 5 or 5:30 or 6 or whatever. But they weren't trying to get me to stay there till 9 o'clock at night. I didn't have a split shift. I wasn't too early in the morning. It was a pretty decent Hagwon job. It was like 1.9 million a month. I remember that.
Well, back in 2002 as well. That's not bad.
It was, the other people were getting two. They kind of lowballed me and my friend. We signed it. I think it was because we were coming from Thailand or whatever. So we did the math. So like, well, 1.9 million Korean won is a lot more than the 800,000, won baht we were getting,
Yeah, and what year was that?
This is 2002 when we came here. And
Yeah,
so
and if you look at Forex, like going from 2002, that's not the dumbest rate. Also, if you're still feeling like you're going to go back to America, like going up to like, what was it, 2007, the Korean won outpaced the dollar around that period. Like,
yes, it dropped like below 1 to 1. It was like 1,000 won was like, it was actually 900 and something baht, or 900 something won was $1. It was insane. It was
when I first got here, it was that way. I remember I was getting screwed because a little bit of money I had was in American dollars still, and I was
Yeah,
planning
that
to live in Korea at the time, and
got it.
I was getting screwed. And then suddenly I started making money and having to send it the other way, and it switched just
Yep.
when I was sending it.
Same.
and you know, I did save a lot of money. I saved money that year, but what we did, what I learned a very valuable lesson. I started a recruiting business with my friend back in Thailand. We found a guy here in Korea, and we were gonna find him teachers from Thailand. And
Sniping the
Thailand
Thai
is
food.
not the place to find people with bachelor degrees who are ready, who are responsible and ready to go. And so basically I lost all the money that I had saved, and I had to go back to my old bilingual school and beg for my job back. They gave it back to me. And then I ran into a friend of mine, and she got me a job at a shipping company as an inbound coordinator for international shipping company. And I did that for a year. I was
In Korea?
I'd crossed the threshold, and I was
So,
in
yeah,
Thailand and
Korea?
not teaching. Yeah,
That was in Korea?
that was in Thailand. So
I
I
was
went
back in
back to
Thailand.
Thailand, and I got a job. I got a normie job in Thailand, which is that's like the uni job of Thailand, if that makes
think-
sense.
Yeah.
You know how like
Right,
in
right.
Korea you're kind of going for the uni job. In Thailand, you want to not be teaching English and living there and working there. If you can swing that, you've made a step. You've crossed a threshold. And so I did that, and there's a whole other podcast of how I ended up quitting that job. But I crash landed back in America in 2005, 2004, and broke. Had no money. Lived with my parents. I was working for a call center, just like doing surveys, just annoying people when they're trying to eat dinner, and for like $10 an hour. And I got just enough money to get on a flight and get back to Korea. And that was 2005, and I'd never left again. I
So
stayed here.
when you came back to Korea, that was your entrance to Chungang?
No, that was another Hagwon. I did
Dude, this
another
guy-
year.
Following this, Kev?
What's that?
I was saying to Kevin, you following this guy?
I think I've got it.
This is like
Don't ask me
blowing
to
my mind.
don't ask me to write it down.
Hey, it goes like this. Okay. I did 1 year in Thailand. Then I came to Korea. I taught a year. I went back to Thailand. I taught for a little while, and then got a normal job there in a shipping company, and then went back to America. That was like 3 years, and I just kind of crashed into America. Like the wheels had
Right.
fallen off the bus. I was broke, just broken down, and I lived with my parents. I got back on my feet just enough to come back to Korea.
Right.
And that was in 2004. 2004. I was in America just for 6 months, and then came back to Korea. And
So
then
wait, slow down. So
Okay.
you come back into Korea. What's
Yeah.
impressing me is your fluidity, your ability to move around. I mean, that's not easy. Like I'm working recently this semester online. I'm working with a lot of people in tutoring. There's a lot of seniors that they end up interviewing me in tutoring because they want to know about fluid lifestyles. They're like,
oh right,
"Man,
yeah,
your life is so fascinating." Like they get it, they want to know about the research I've done and my degree and my work and my travels. And they're just like, how do you stay that fluid? So for you, you're just sliding around everywhere. You're like,
I
yeah,
know.
I'm just going to Korea and to do this, and then you just slide back into Thailand. You work in the shipping, and then then go back to the States, and then you coast on fumes back to Korea.
yeah.
So you jumped over a point there. How did you get back into Korea?
Well, the thing about Korea, I think that anyone who's listening to this podcast who's teaching in Korea knows that it's an instant life in a bottle. Like you crack it open, and you got an apartment, you've got a job, you've got money, and it's instant. It's not like if I'd have stayed in America, I'd have to save up for first and last month's rent. I'd have to go out, maybe find a roommate. I got to find a better job. I got to get health insurance. That's a huge, pain in the ass. Everyone knows, in America, dealing with the health insurance, or a lot of people like me who didn't have health insurance. If I'd gotten sick, you just deal with it yourself, right? You just, NyQuil and
That's a way to put it. Life in a bottle. Is that what you said?
yeah. It was just kind of a
That's cool.
prepackaged life,
Yeah, and
Like,
that's not the same everywhere. That's a good point to mention right now. That's not the same in all of ESL in the on the planet.
no, no, no. Yeah.
Like one of Kevin and I's mutual buddies, Dan, uh, he was in Korea first, and then later he ended up in Taiwan. I went to visit him, and it's much more of a hustle. There's pros and cons
Really?
to it. Yeah, there's pros and cons. There's less. You're not going to do the FBI check, like stuff like this,
Right,
where
right, right.
it's not transcripts and all this kind of stuff that you got to worry about. Those things, should be important for an employer, but what I'm trying to say is like it's more like getting a job in the States,
Right.
and you're on your own. Whereas you're right, like in Korea, I think
Yeah.
for most, like I've never done a hagwon thing. Like I've never had that experience, but I've seen the contracts and I've had many friends that have done it.
Yep.
Like there's somebody waiting for you at the airport. You've got a place to stay. You've got all your bills covered. Everything's just kind of
They picked me up.
done.
They put me in a van, dropped me off in my apartment that was all, ready for me. They even
Yeah,
bought
right.
some groceries for me because they were, nice like that. Again, it was a real decent hagwon. Again, I complained about it all the time because they asked me to work, it's like, that like, God forbid they asked you to work. But yeah, it was kind of an instant, it's just, I had, all of a sudden I had the whole subway system at my, disposal. I could just go wherever I wanted. I didn't need a car. I had an apartment. I had some money, and I was ready to. Yeah, I was 26 or 27 years old, so I was ready to go out. So I was kind of a Hongdae Itaewon rat. You know what I mean?
Right.
At that
We
time.
all were.
You came to Seoul.
Yeah, I was in Seoul. I was right near at Daebang Station, right there at like Noryangjin, Daebang, Shingil, Yeongdeungpo area was really close. So I could, we could get over to Hongdae in 5-10 minutes. We could get to Itaewon 10-15 minutes, by taxi. It was really easy.
How long did you stay at the hagwon?
So I stayed there for over a year because I decided, I'm like, I need a uni job, because a guy that I worked at my first hagwon got a uni job, and he had the same, he had just a bachelor's degree like me. Like I didn't have a master's degree. I was not I wasn't on an academic trajectory at that time. I just wanted to finish my bachelor's degree and just get done with school and you live, and but I'd heard about these uni jobs, right? They're unicorns, man. They're like you work 6 months out of the year and you still get paid for the 3 months in the summer and 3 months. That's got to be, it's bull crap. It can't be real. I couldn't believe it. It was real. And the guy's like, yeah, it's real. I got this. And
What year did you get to Chungnong then?
so in 2006, I applied for a couple of university jobs, and I really, worked on my resume like really hard. And I sent it off, and I forgot to look at and this was off of Dave's ESL Cafe. So Jungang was hiring at the Ansong campus, and I didn't mean to apply for it. Okay. I just applied for it on a whim, and it said they wanted a master's degree. But I went in and interviewed, and the girl that interviewed me was a Canadian girl, two Canadian girls. Sorry, an American girl and a Canadian girl, and they just liked my interview, and they thought I had a good, like, kind of open mind, and so they go, we're not going to give it to you. So they didn't give it to me, but I was right in line. If somebody quit, if somebody dropped out, somebody dropped, boom, I filled in the spot. I got the job, and at that point, I realized the writing is on the wall. And so that master's degrees are going to become necessary. And I made some plans to get a master's degree while also working at Jungang. And so right as I got the master's degree, they changed the rules at our school. So
Man, like
yeah.
I've known you for so long, and I know parts of your backstory from knowing you for so long, but this is the first time that I've heard it in sequence. And I've always felt very similar to you. I mean, honestly, like we have the same haircut, but we also like,
Yeah.
like we do.
God gave
like,
us that haircut. Yeah.
yeah, we're like the same age. We come from the same part of the States. I feel like we have like similar interests and things. But this is the first moment that I'm really realizing like your road that came to this moment. I'm gonna be dramatic, but it's like really different from mine.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
no,
I thought it was always quite similar, but it's
yeah.
yeah. But before I jump into that, do we want to flip it to someone
Yeah,
else?
let's flip it. Let's because we've got a whole year's worth of podcasting to do. We're gonna come back to this stuff again. But
Oh, for
yeah,
sure. There's so many small details that we can't get to.
Yeah,
no
Kev, you
problem.
for sure.
We don't have to, eat the whole fish today. We can it's we got lots of time. So
Well, yeah, you
Kev,
made
yeah.
so many cool. Just that narrative. I think it'd be good for like Kev or I to jump in, just because there's so many like comparisons to be made.
Oh, yeah,
I just
absolutely.
it's like everything you said. It's like nope, 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 nope. Like totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm a weird I'm like a transition between the new kind of the crew that is now teaching at the university and the old school. And I'm a kind of mix of both of those worlds, I
yeah,
think. The
yeah.
kind
Like
of, Wild West and the what it is now.
yeah. You said 2002 you landed
Yeah.
in Asia.
That was World Cup. Yeah, in Korea. It was a great time to be here. Just amazing. But
That would have been
anyway,
epic.
Kev, how did I don't even know how you ended up in Korea. So
What's the
Uh, uh,
secret?
the secret airplanes, they get you here pretty quick.
What's the
Um,
secret? What happened? What happened?
no, so I mean, yeah, it is interesting how mine was much more planned, but still off the cuff at the same time. Like I didn't plan every part of it. But when I was in uni, I studied abroad for a semester, and that threw the love of travel in me just in general. And so when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I was like, now what? And I couldn't find a job, and I did find grad school. I was like, oh, okay. I just fell into grad school basically. So I went through grad school, and I was teaching as I was going through grad school. And then when I got through grad school again, I was like, I graduated. I'm like, okay, now what? I was like, oh, well, I like traveling, and this teaching thing is kind of cool as well. Oh, hey, I speak English. This is kind of convenient. I've heard that people
what were
want
you
to learn this
teaching at
language.
the what were you teaching before that?
Public
You
speaking.
weren't teaching. One more time?
Public speaking.
Ah, okay, okay,
Communication major, and so I was teaching public speaking, which is
right.
what I've done start at Chungang as well a few times. Um, and yeah, so I was just teaching that, and I fell into teaching as well. It's something I never thought I would have been doing when I was younger, but I enjoyed it. I was like, I want to travel. I'm out of school now. I want to travel now because traveling was cool. I can't find a job here in the States. This is weird. I'm a communication major. What the hell do I do with that? Um, so I was like, okay, I want to travel. Oh, hey, I speak English. That's convenient. And I like teaching. That's cool as well. What can I do? So I started looking into Europe because I had already been in Europe. Europe's really rad. And then I realized Europe jobs are really hard to get because if you're not European, basically. So I looked into Asia, and I looked really close into Thailand as well. But I made a similar calculation to you, which is I have student loans in US dollars.
You're right.
And although Thailand sounds rad to sit on the beach, I can't do that. I have to pay these loans off. I need to earn proper money. So I looked at the big three, Korea, Japan, China, and I did a ton of research on them. And I was pretty decided that I wanted to come to Korea. Um, and then I got really lucky because the summer that I graduated from grad school, a buddy of mine he needed someone to help fill a summer camp that he'd already done from the previous summer. It was a Korean Hagwon that was sending kids over to Sedona, Arizona, to do this summer program there, basically. And they were like,
And
we just
your
need
buddy
someone.
was running this camp?
No, he was just teaching it actually.
Oh, okay. Because
But he'd
somebody's
already been
making
teaching it.
serious bank doing that.
Oh yeah,
Like
for sure.
that.
No, it was
I just got dollar signs just popped in my eyes there when I heard about that. I was like,
if
wow.
if only. No, he was teaching it, and he'd already done it 1 year previous, and so they needed somebody for that year, and he was like, hey, do you want to come do this with me? I was like, sure, why not? I've got nothing else to do this summer. I don't have a job yet. I just graduated. And it was with this Korean Hagwon, and I'd already been thinking really hard about Asia and about Korea, and suddenly I'm teaching at this or for this Korean Hagwon, but in the States. And so while I was working for them, I started talking to the teachers because, of course, I sent over teachers with the kids. Started talking to the teachers that were from the Hagwon. I started emailing from the coordinator at the Hagwon back in Korea, and I was like, "Can I just come back with the kids and work for you?" And that's basically how I got the job. It was just
Oh,
that,
wow.
sure, here you go, job set.
Did they make a position for you, or they were trying to fill that position? It just like was a coincidence.
No, there was a position that needed to be filled. That's why, because I didn't come back immediately with the kids. Like I wasn't on the same plane with them. I came back like 2 months later, basically, like
Okay.
the end of, or like 1 month. So
That's-
the kids
that's
went
a great-
back, and I went
that's a
back to
great
life,
development.
and then I came over.
I love this development, like just a career track. Like I advise students on this stuff all the time. They're like, how do I get more fluid in my career and stuff? I'm like, guys, volunteer, say yes to crazy shit. Just
Yes.
go. Say yes. Say yes.
Yes to everything, man.
Yeah, and like right there, Kev's like, hey, I'm gonna go work at this camp. And then when at the end, he's like, hey, can I go back with you? Like,
Right.
but it's funny, but think about that compared to somebody submitting a resume. They're seeing Kevin on the ground. They've already
Mm.
experienced working with him. It's a no-brainer. It's like,
And you also did your own recruiting, but you know, you saved them a good amount of money by, you know, they didn't have to do any recruiting. They love it.
Though I did actually talk up my pay because I'd done a lot of research. I mean, I just got out of grad school, so my entire life for the past like 3 years was research. So all I did for like the 2 months before coming to Korea was like, okay, what kind of jobs are there? How much is the pay? Like I knew everything theoretical about Korea. I didn't know anything about actually being on the ground, but you know, like anything that was online on Dave's ESL, I knew. I mean, and there was a lot of negativity at the time. I'm sure you guys saw it. So I knew everything. I was like,
Yeah.
2.1. That was the base pay at the time. It was like 2.1, and I was like, I've got a master's degree. Like I'm worth more than that. I managed to talk them up. I think they're just 2.2 or 2.3, but I got a little bit of a raise. And they were like, we don't normally do this, but I managed to get it from them.
so how long did you hang out there? Like when you took that position, is that a full year or?
It was 1 year, almost exactly. Actually, I got really lucky because, and I kind of pissed them off a little bit at the end, because I
Well, because you
started.
left and they didn't like that.
Well, because I left, but also the semester, as you know, here starts September 1st, right?
Yeah.
My
yeah.
contract there started something like September 7th. So I had like 1 week of overlap that I needed to deal with. And I was like, but I hadn't used my vacation time. You know, you get 2 weeks of vacation time the entire year. And I never used it. And I was like, I'm just going to use it at the end of my contract. And they're like, you can't do that. That's weird. I'm like, but I'm gonna. And so I basically just like took a week off early. And so my transition as well from Hagwon to university was I finished at the Hagwon. I packed up my shit into a van, moved it down to I was in Suwon at the time at a different university.
Yeah.
Moved it down, put it into my apartment, and the next Monday, I was at the uni teaching classes.
No, I didn't know you. I thought your first uni was our school. So you're.
No, I did a year at Aju down in Suwon, and that was a really cool gig. It was really fun, but it wasn't for me at the time. I think now actually it would be better. I was teaching a
Right.
program where I was teaching like government, elementary, middle, and high school English teachers, Korean English teachers, who would like take a year off, go back to uni, and get like an extra certificate, right?
I remember this
And-
program. Yeah, this was a kind of some initiative by the government. I think is it like
Yeah,
Nomunyan
something like that.
era or something like that? I think.
It would have been Lee Myung-bak, I think.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I remember I was here right when that first election was happening. I was like, I just landed in the country and there was a presidential election, which was happening the year before that. So when I was down there, that was actually a really cool job. Except at the time, it wasn't a good job for me because I was teaching these public school teachers who in 100% of the cases were older than me. Not one of them was younger than me. And you guys know in Korea, age is a really big thing here, right? And so I'm the teacher trying to teach all of these people that are older than me. Now, some of them were teachers that had only been teaching for 1 or 2 years, so they were only a year or two older than me. But some of them were my mom's age. So
Yeah.
I was teaching a program where I was teaching them how to teach. And in many cases, they'd been alive longer, or they'd been teaching longer than I'd been alive. And
And
so
I'm
that
sure
was
they
just a
were very
really,
responsive, right?
yeah, it was a really tough program. I'm like, I'm a brand new teacher. I just came to Korea a year ago. Like, I barely know what I'm doing. So that was a really tough program. And now I think I can handle it much better. But at
Yeah,
the
sure.
time, it was just like I'm new, and so at the end of that contract, it was just a 1 year contract. They were like, "Yeah, we don't want to hire you back." I'm like, "Yeah, honestly, I don't really want to come back." So it was kind of mutual. Like it just didn't really fit,
Right.
and then I got the job at Chungang, which was also crazy lucky as well. Actually, I
So
got that.
you and
Oh,
I applied at the same time.
yeah, we worked at the same thing.
Yeah, so Kevin and I, we both entered Chunong in the same cycle.
Oh, you
Hmm.
guys are same. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I've known him since the first day at that place. We've been there ever since. So
12
Yeah.
years.
What was your first year? What year was it? Is it 2000?
2009, fall of 2009.
2009. Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
in the autumn.
That's when I graduated. I finished grad school that year. That was
That's when they started requiring the masters then.
yeah, right when they redid the whole program when you guys came in, it's kind of like a brand new program.
Yeah, they were revamping everything. I think it was like Doosan took over the business.
I was the
Mhm.
only I was the only survivor of
Right.
the old guard. Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I do want to talk to you about, but I think that would end up in a digression. We're going to bring that up for another
Yes,
podcast.
yes. That's a future.
Yeah, the evolutions, how to thread the needle, and yeah,
I'll
take
spill the
write that
tea
down.
for sure. I will. Yeah.
we'll feature that. But back to what Kev was saying, you said it was you got lucky. So what was you said if it's lucky, what was the process to get into CAU?
So where I got really lucky was because so I mean it's the summer vacation, so I was off from my one uni and I was just trying to find jobs at other universities, and I was having no luck finding jobs at other unis. I had like one interview, I didn't get the job there, and then I was talking with a buddy back home, and I was like, dude, I think I'm gonna have to go back to teaching at a Hagwon again. I was looking at like Pagoda and those places, and he's like, it's never too late. I'm like, you're right, you're right. It's not too late, damn it. And so I went to Dave's, same thing, and I found the posting there,
Yeah.
and I so I applied to Chunong, and the funny thing is, how did it work? Like I applied, I got an email saying, oh, hold on. So yeah, so I applied. They sent me an email saying, "Are you good for an interview on this day?" Basically, and I wrote back saying, "No, I not. I have something available. How about this other time?" And they wrote back and they were like, "Fine," but for some reason that second email never came to me. Like it went into my spam box or something like that. And so I was like, well, okay, that sucks. I don't get the job, nothing happens. And it turns out that my interview was like the day after my birthday. My birthday's in the summer, end of July. And so on my birthday, I went out, as you do. I was in Hongdae all night the night before. And suddenly the next morning, I'm like barely alive on my bed at home, and my phone rings and it's like, "Are you coming in for the interview?" And I'm like, and I'm in Suwon, and this is in Seoul, and I'm just like, "What interview?
Oh boy.
Oh my God." And I was like, "No, I can't. I honestly, I didn't get your email. I wasn't lying. I wasn't bullshitting. I honestly didn't get their email. Like I didn't know that my interview was then." And I was like, "Can I? I'm so sorry. Oh my God, this is the only job. Can I come in tomorrow?" And they said yes. Some magic way.
That's
They were like,
amazing. That's
That's
the lucky part. Because
that's the crazy
nuts.
part.
That's
It's-
nuts.
I know.
And
I missed the interview.
I know
and-
from being in the admin at CAU, and you know that in our hiring cycle, there was over 80 applicants that were interviewed. It was
Yeah.
massive.
Wow.
And
That's
you got
crazy, man.
I
Yeah.
got to pass.
Like,
And they
You
were
made
like,
a great
come in.
impression then, you know?
Yeah. So then I went in the next, and that day, then they were like, "Okay, your interview's tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay." So I spent that entire day panicking because I had to like write a lesson to like, preview and demonstrate. I didn't know what I was doing for the interview. And then I went in the next day and yeah, apparently nailed the interview because here I am. But so it really was kind of meant to be if there is such a thing.
I'd say so. Or
Yeah, I got
really-
crazy lucky on that. I still remember that panic that morning with me up.
Yeah. But I mean, it very well could be also that it's not just dumb luck. I mean, I know, I still think there's value to being kind of the aggressive go-getter. I mean, even at the age of 42, I still believe in this. Like,
Oh man.
just like Kevin's background, like think about what your previous employer might have told Chunong when they made the phone call, for your reference. It's like, yeah, this guy's nuts. Like, he signed up for this gig back here. He jumps on a freaking plane. He's crazy.
Right.
Like, dedicated. He's excited. He's stoked. I think it's I didn't know that about you, man. I didn't know that's
Yeah,
how
it was a random. So I jumped around for a couple of years, but I got out of the Hagwon system pretty quick and into unis, and then did the same thing you guys have done, just held on to what we have for the past decade plus.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Especially when you know the alternative, you know,
Yeah,
it's
going.
you know,
I
2
can't
weeks of
imagine
holiday.
going back to
Yeah.
Hagwons at all. I did that temporarily last summer just for a part-time job. I was working at a Hagwon again, and I was like, oh my god, it made me appreciate what we have so much more. So
Well,
much.
one of the themes of our later podcast is going to be a kind of you know, what's the difference between teaching at a Hagwon and teaching at uni, and
Mm.
we can do a deep
Oh,
dive
yeah.
into that. I think there's a lot of material there because there
Yeah,
are
I might-
differences.
might turn to the MC for that because I've never done the Hagwon thing.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah,
But you
But I
worked
love-
public schools, didn't you?
you can ask us. Yeah,
I didn't really work. So, well, actually, that could be my segue.
yeah. Let's jump.
And how did you come to Korea, Ryan?
How did I come to Korea?
He got bit by a
Um,
radioactive spider, and then
Radioactive
Uh,
kimchi.
yeah, so throughout my undergraduate and graduate school, I was no, not undergraduate, but by the time I got to graduate school, I was really dedicated as a student and just really focused. I was on a career track that was really clear, black and white, and it was going really well. And I was working as I wasn't working yet, but I was doing my practicum as an educational psychologist.
mhm.
So for this, they're shuttling me. I mean, I'm just going all over Chicago to not just schools, but private academies, institutions for the gifted and talented, or developmentally disabled, and all these, you know, these types of things. And I'm seeing all these different education systems. And one of the big questions was, the biggest question was leveling the opportunities for people. I mean, that's, you got to understand, it's a public system, mostly is what I was going towards after graduation. So I was looking to work in Chicago public schools, in high schools. And what I found among specifically the public high schools was that there was a difference in outcomes for different students that were immigrants, depending on which country they were coming from. And some of that can be chalked up to that country has a impoverished education system in general, or that community that comes from. You could look at that data and that kind of makes sense. And you can find that pattern. But I noticed there was something else going on. And so started to ask the question of, do people learn differently based on their linguistic background? So you've heard of this before. Chomsky talks about this, and
Right.
Learning Korean language. We're very familiar with this basically with numbers, right? I mean, counting in your head in Korean makes a lot more sense than counting in English,
Mhm.
in base 10. So I kind of thought about that. Now, before I make anything big brain here, I discovered nothing. this was not, yeah,
You didn't.
nothing amazing. The story is not going anywhere, guys. This is not impressive. So
Yeah.
everybody can settle down. So what I wanted to see was generally just how do other nations, or how do other education systems work? And in Chicago, I had the opportunity to look at some private schools, but they're just sort of derivatives of this public system. They are.
Yeah.
And so to get out of that, I had to go abroad. I talked to my advisors and I said I wanted to go to Mexico because it's close, and I've never really been abroad. So this was like,
It's like a half step instead of
me,
the full
you
step.
know?
Yeah. 'Cause
Like
Asia's a full step. Like that's straight out of
oh, it
the.
wasn't even in my mind. It wasn't even in my
Yeah.
mind. I was like, no, I didn't even think of it. I didn't think of any part of the world. I was just like, well, you know, South America, it's right there, down there, you know?
Can learn the Espanol. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, and as well actually, because if I could improve Spanish, then that's a big deal for work when I come back.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, the point was I was looking for that, and I asked, and later they came back and they said, well, we know someone who had just recently finished a research project in Kaohsiung, Taiwan, and we can put you over there. And I was like, whoa, what? Taiwan? I don't know if I can point to that on the map. I don't know what. So I told my family, I told my friends, a lot of people, what? This is crazy. You can't do this, whatever. Coincidentally, my best friend from undergraduate had just kind of jettisoned life and gone to Busan, actually Gimhae, outside of Busan, and working at a Hogwarts.
Yeah.
And this is in the early days of MySpace. Do you remember
Oh
MySpace?
yeah, sure. I had a MySpace
Right.
account.
Picture the
I miss
timeline.
Tom.
If you picture the timeline, it's like undergraduate, and then I did AmeriCorps for a couple years.
Oh, my friend, one close friend did that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really great. So I was a volunteer nurse for people with developmental disabilities for 2 years. And then after that, I did graduate school. So during this period from graduation of undergraduate through the AmeriCorps program and then through graduate school, I lost contact with my buddy. We were just living different lives. And I don't know if I should say this much in podcasts, but he got divorced. It was this big dramatic thing.
Okay.
And
We don't have to
so
say his name. So
I kind of felt like, yeah, right. So I don't think he was caring, but when I thought about Asia, I thought about him because I had heard through MySpace that he was over in Korea. And so I just contacted him. And this is like the dumbest thing now that I've been in Seoul for, half of my adult life. But in my mind, it was like, I wanted to ask him, how's Asia? Like, I had no context. So I was like, hey, how's Asia? Like,
it's great.
Is that
yeah.
like, how's the weather?
It's okay. Yeah.
So he wanted to know, it was on MySpace, right? That's how we connected. And he wanted to know, of course, what I was doing. I said, well, I've got this opportunity to do this research. I don't know if I'm going to do it. It seems like a big opportunity. And he put me in contact with all these people that he met in Korea on MySpace. So you can imagine this. This is like the first real big social networking. It's not uncomfortable, like an email, like, hey, email this person, ask them some questions. I'm opening up their page. I see their photos. They're at the parties. They're at the beach. They're
That's a
traveling.
good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and they just plug me into it. So I joined those communities, and I had all these people like cheerleading for me. They were like, come to Korea, come to Korea. And I'm like, yeah, guys, I don't have a project there. I'm going to Taiwan. That's not a thing. And eventually, I don't know why, but no, because I just wanted to have fun. I talked to my advisors and I said, look, can I go to Korea? And they said, of course not. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
And I said, well, can I take, I don't know what you call it, suspension? Sabbatical? It's not sabbatical. I was still a grad student.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had finished my master's. I was in a program that's an EdS, so it's like an abbreviated PhD.
Okay.
I had my master's at this point. And so what they said was, look, you can have 12 months and you can maintain your position. Now, my position was a really hot ticket. I was working with the president of the school psychologist of the United States of America. It was a big position. I was doing quite well in that world. So it was a risk, but I had 12 months freedom. And I didn't really believe in the nature of the research project. I didn't have something penned out. And I thought, well, I can do research in Busan. I'll just go and find people. And I already know all these teachers. And in my mind, I don't realize they're Hagwon teachers. I think they're like academics, they're teachers.
Sure. Yeah.
So I get on a flight with no job and I went to my buddy's house. At this point, he had moved into Gwangnam-li in Busan. And I crashed on his couch for about a month and a half. And that's when I understood things were different.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was not the place I thought it was.
Right.
And I was able to, I made contact with the Board of Education in Busan. They gave me a chance to view one of their pilot programs for immersive language, and they let me teach it. So I got employed at that point. And that was when I went through all the visa stuff and the FBI check and took a little boat ride to Fukuoka.
What year is this? Like what's the timeline?
2007.
Okay. Because like if you wanted to do research for education, you'd probably be better off, studying the Korean teachers in the public school system would be more
Oh,
of
man,
a
well, don't-
one-to-one, right?
don't get-
Is it?
Don't get the impression I was organized.
Oh,
This
okay. Oh,
was
yeah.
oh,
You're just,
straight up.
yeah,
This
yeah.
was me trying to convince myself I was still being a responsible adult, not throwing away my life.
So this is kind of a fiction.
It's a good
you're
act.
kind of,
It's a good act so far.
Yeah, I mean, I bluffed
Sounds
myself.
good.
Like
Yeah.
I had, because my buddy, he was going through kind of a midlife crisis, and he's having the time of his life. I'm going through a lot of stress, natural, normal stress.
Yeah.
I see this guy able to jettison all that stress. I think that's where I bought that plane ticket. Yeah, so I did. I think I collected like 9 months of paychecks through the Busan Board of Education. They weren't much, but it was pretty cool because one of my friends hooked me up with a private lesson that paid for all my lifestyle, everything. So when I left, I had all my paychecks. I didn't spend
Oh,
a penny.
wow.
Yeah. So when I left, so when I finished that period, I was intending to go back to Chicago because my time was up. And I had a friend, a horrible influence on me, but I admired him. He spoke 5 languages. He was just an impressive human. And, he's the poet, and
Yeah.
he's like, why are you going back to Chicago? He's like, you got a pocket full of money. Life is open. The world's your oyster. Go blast off, man. Get a ticket to Bangkok. He convinced me of it. And it took me a long time before I realized it wasn't a terrible idea. So I did
So
the backpack.
You've had regret. You've kind of come to see that moment as like not the positive, kind of opening up, but is something you kind of close something off at that point, like you.
It was a very brief thing. It was like,
Yeah.
I felt like, what I'm trying to say is I felt manic until I landed in Bangkok, and then I was good to go.
Oh, okay.
Everything started to make sense. I was like, Ryan, you take life way too seriously.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna die someday, and it's okay. I never traveled. I never really had that space.
Yeah.
I didn't have the latitude, I didn't have the money, didn't have the time. I never did that stuff. Like, Kev, you got to go abroad. I didn't have even the, like, what do you say, like the my academic achievement wasn't good enough to get me out of the country to do things like that. I just didn't have.
Well, studying abroad as an undergrad doesn't require academic achievements.
Well, I didn't have the ambition that you had then. I didn't go for it. So
But I think like teaching English, like teaching overseas is like, it's you can indulge that like inner hippie, but you're not totally being irresponsible. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like the
you got a job.
compromise position. You know what I mean? Like it's still a weird life. Like it's what we're doing is kind of out of the ordinary. We could say that.
yeah, but I like the way you said that. Like that, I think that's the people who see that live this lifestyle the best. People that take I'm a professional academic too seriously,
Yeah.
they're gonna be miserable. And then people that also just F off, they're gonna be miserable. They don't take it seriously enough. You thread that needle. You find that balance where you can actually progress professionally, personally, but then you also have like all this space to experiment.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're doing, that's why we're doing a podcast. That's why we're, you can indulge these other, projects that you're interested in. That's why you've got 2 guitars behind you,
Yeah.
you got time to practice. And yeah, it's a lifestyle choice, kind of career, like what we're doing. But anyway, sorry, I sidetracked you from,
I don't know, I'm kind of ramping out. I'm kind of hyper. I'm about to leave on a bike trip tomorrow. So me and a buddy are biking down to Yeoju. So I'm kind of amped up at the moment. But I don't know. I'll sum it up. I'm kind of going long here. So where was I? So I'm backpacking through Asia. So I did that for about a year. And when I finished, my intention was to come back and kind of on a Hail Mary, not a Hail Mary. What's the right expression? Like a dice throw. People are saying like, hey man, you've got this degree that's very good. You already have been to Korea, you've got the paperwork, you've got, you understand the system here. Why don't, all my friends were like, why don't you work in a university? It's amazing. I knew some guys that worked at universities in Busan. Oh, the pay was shit. I mean, those guys they were making really bad pay, but the hours were ridiculous. They were working 12
Yeah.
hours a week, and like you said, 6 months a year. And I had some other things I'd like to research and some things I'd like to do. So I thought, well, maybe I can get creative with my downtime. Maybe it's something to consider. Whatever. I just fired off a ton of resumes, see what happens. Got back to America. I stayed in New York at that point. I was in, I was in the Bronx and with a friend. And I stayed there for about 4 months, really not doing anything. Just kind of idling, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
not
sure.
productive. But during that time, I let my rotation lapse to get back into my program at Loyola. Not a big deal. I have to reapply, but it's symbolic. It was sort of like the window closing. And I got offers from many universities. So I called my friend again. At this point, he had moved up to Seoul, and I said, "Hey, guess what? I'm thinking I'm coming back." You know, and again, you know, all these cheerleaders, yeah, come back, all these friends. So I came back, and I did a couple interviews, but CAU was interesting. I looked through my emails. I did not apply to CAU.
What?
No, I did not apply to CAU.
How do you think they got a hold of your resume then? Just
I'm not sure. I fired off a lot of resumes, and
Yeah.
I knew a lot of people when I was in Busan. But that's public school system. I don't know what kind of overlap there was. But I was asked to meet with them. They never called it an interview. And so I didn't expect it to be an interview. It was for a working position. So I knew that much. And that's what I was looking for. And I remember I was mostly concerned about compensation, about money.
Oh, sure.
Right? I didn't know what else to compare. I wanted to be in Busan because I was familiar with it. It had the beaches. It was nice. It's beautiful. But most of my friends that I had known there had migrated to Seoul. So it really didn't matter so much. What really mattered to me, I didn't know anything about the quality of the work because I've never done that type of work. I didn't know what it would be like to teach like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was just money. And I called them on the phone and I just straight up asked, I said, look, you didn't offer me, I need to know black and white. What's the pay? What are the hours? And I remember feeling a little bold doing that. It seemed a little inappropriate.
They like that though. I think they respect it, you know?
They let it out to me. Yeah, the pay package was better than anything else I was getting that was offered. PNU, was my runner-up. That's where I would have ended up. So, yeah, when I went, I thought I was just going to sign paperwork, and they were like, "We'd like to see a demonstration of class," and I'm like, "A what?"
Did you wing it? You just did put something together?
What can I do? Like Kevin, you remember this? Like it's like all these dudes sitting there.
Yeah.
Just
give you like a little chair, you know, they're up here, you know, you're just like, oh, crap. You know. But at the time, I don't feel a ton of pressure because, like I said, I already had kind of made up my mind I was going to go to PNU, and I had the job already there. And that was an interview. That was an actual interview where I already sweated and competed. Yeah. So, I didn't give a demonstration because I didn't have one. I said, how about if I just sit here and I walk you through an idea? That's how I started the conversation.
Can you give us a demonstration of a class? No, I'd rather not.
I'm gonna go meta. I'm gonna give you a demonstration of an idea that I had about a class. Yeah,
that's exactly what I did.
There you go.
So, yeah, and they got back to me, and obviously I got the position, and yeah, obviously it's been something that's been fruitful. I mean, you guys know.
Yeah, I mean. We could have called this the the Not Black Pilled podcast, you know what I mean? Because it's three expats, but we found a way to, like you said, thread the needle or find that balance, you know, in our lives and be content, in Korea. So we're kind of coming at it. I think this podcast it's not going to be let's just complain about all the things that are different, or the things that annoy us or whatever. We're going to.
That's too easy to find anyway. The people complaining, it was on Dave's ESL back when I came here. Now it's on our Korea on Reddit.
Right, like-
and there's positivity as well, but there's a lot of
Sure.
negativity.
Yeah,
online.
like
Yeah.
I've talked to Kev a lot about this, even with um like we've known each other for so long, and like Jack, you've been at the other campus, so I
Sure,
don't
right.
see you as often. Plus, like Kevin and I used to live in the same neighborhood for years.
Mhm.
One of the things that Kevin and I always kind of gravitate towards each other is because of positivity. It's a weird thing to admit after what? How long have we been at Chungan? Is it 11
Yeah.
years?
12,
I mean,
12 this
Oh, you guys are
semester.
12th year. Yeah. It's one of the things that I love about Kevin. I always have since day one. Trey. Trey was the other guy. He only lasted for a semester. He went off
Yeah.
back. He went to Hong Kong, I think. But he had that same attitude. There's people here that were, they're excited because, hey, I'm getting some easy money doing something. There's other people who are like, I want to party. It's fun. That's fine. And I have some of that attitude as well, some of that stoke. And so does Kevin. But the more general stoke is just, it's for the whole package, the life. Korea is amazing. And I hope we can talk a lot more about that in this podcast, not just the work, but Koreans and Korean culture. This place is
Yes.
rad. Like,
Yes.
I'm happy to be living in Seoul versus Chicago. Chicago's cool. Seoul's better.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge city. Like, it's like a New York City. I mean, we could do a whole podcast of just diving into, just living in Seoul or in Gyeonggi. I'm in Gyeonggi. I'm in the suburbs, but it's the same. It's huge, and there's
And that's
so deep.
what I was saying a while back, and so many people ask me why I came to Korea, and that's what we talked about today.
Right.
And that's a cool story. I like telling. I mean, there's a lot that we didn't talk about in all of our why we came to Korea stories, but really, what's more interesting, and that's why we kept it short for this, and what we're going to go into for the next forever, is why we stayed in Korea. That's the
Yeah.
interesting part, and that's what people really want to know when they ask you, like, why are you teaching in Korea? It's not why did you come here or how did you come here. Like, that's a cool story, but that's not what they want to know. They want to know what made it interesting. Why did you choose to not run away? I mean, I remember stories of people when I first came to Korea. I told my friends, like, I'm going to go to Korea and teach. And one of my buddies was like, oh, I know a friend who was there for a month and she ran away and came back in the States. Why did we
Yeah,
not
yeah.
do that?
No,
Why did we stick
we've
with
all
it?
known runners, right? Like
Oh, sure.
people that just midnight bags packed.
Midnight runner.
Yeah, midnight runner, man. I've seen many of them. You could spot it months ahead of time.
Mm.
It's like that person's not going to last, or it's like you said, it's an attitude. It's you have to kind of change yourself a little bit. I think you got to at
Oh,
least
sure.
you at least have to meet the place halfway. And those that are can't compromise, are always going to be in conflict with their living situation, their lives. It's just always going to be bumping into things they don't like. And but I think absolutely we have to. I think why we stay is would be a great theme for an upcoming podcast for sure. So
I mean, I think we
Yeah.
could roll right into that. I think Kevin just hit it on the head. Those things are so different in so many ways. Like, why did you come here? Well, there's so many reasons that people come here. You can come here just to blow up your life if you want to. You can come here because,
right.
you're on a gap year. You can come here because whatever. But I think a more interesting question for most people is to explore why people like us, why we've stayed so long, and how to live well, like how to
Right.
find a good existence, something that we must assume, we all must think is better than going back, because that's why we're still here.
And in a funny way, you kind of you'll ultimately come full circle and realize that my life here is pretty pedestrian. Like it's not that much different than the things that I value are very much the things that I would probably value if I were married and had a daughter and lived in America, in Minnesota or whatever. It's funny how you can't, it's not that easy. You can't make that. You have to kind of go through that and to come to that moment where you're kind of like, oh, it is basically the same thing, but I'm doing it over here instead of in this other, space or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know. I think I would say episode 1 is in the can. I think we got it. I learned some stuff about you guys that I didn't know, and
Sure.
I think
much more I wanna
my
ask
story
as
is
we
kind of dirtbag story though. It's a little mine's a little uglier than yours.
No way,
But,
man. That was impressive. That was classic. That's like Jack out of the bag. What?
it's just like it's like a dude just scrambling to hold on, at every turn, just how can I extend this a little bit longer? But
Yours is like a movie. Like you have like I want rights to that.
well, the screenplay will come later, after our cast blows up here a little bit. But anyway, guys, it was awesome chatting with you, and I think we'll close her down, and we'll see everyone, or some of you will see us on Facebook or on YouTube. Sorry. So if you check out the channel, please hit subscribe and like the videos, and you can listen to us on other major platforms if you're just listening to the podcast. And we'll be back next week for another interesting conversation. So we'll close it out there. Thanks, guys.
I like to pay a couple respects to the people that made me what I am today.
Nothing gear.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
The quiet man.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
Dopamine. Jim.
It's all my love. It's all my love. It's all my love.
The brain.
It's all my love. It's all my love.
Hey, Bobby.
Let the bass go.